Working a night shift at a healthcare facility sounds peaceful on paper. Quiet halls, dim lights, a few patients who need routine checks. It almost feels like the kind of job where nothing ever happens. But if you talk to people who actually work those shifts, they'll tell you the truth. Night shifts have their own personality. You don't just deal with silence. You deal with the stuff hiding underneath the silence. The things you only notice when the world around you gets too still. This first story comes from a guy named Liam. He worked nights at a mid-sized rehabilitation center in the Midwest. It wasn't a creepy old building. It wasn't falling apart. In fact, most of it looked pretty normal. Clean floors, bright hallways, fresh paint everywhere. But the West Wing was different. Staff didn't like going there unless they had to. They joked about it sometimes, but whenever someone actually had to walk through it alone, the jokes suddenly stopped. The West Wing always had this reputation. Lights that flickered for a second too long, doors that seemed to creak even when no one touched them. That weird cold spot in the hallway you could walk through like it was a pocket of winter air. Nothing dramatic enough to complain about, but strange enough that everyone preferred doing rounds anywhere else. Around Liam's second month, he began noticing something really small. One of those details you ignore the first few times until your brain finally goes, okay, wait, that's not normal. Whenever he walked past room 4, he heard this faint echo. Not a voice, not footsteps. It sounded more like someone breathing into a microphone from far away. A slow, strained inhale that faded into silence. He tried brushing it off at first. The nurses always said the West Wing was old. Old vents, old pipes, old wiring. Basically, chill, the building is weird, not haunted. But the sound from room 4 didn't match anything mechanical. It was too consistent. The length never changed. The tone never changed. The rhythm never changed. It was the same every single time. And here's where things start feeling wrong. Room 4 had been empty for almost 6 months, completely cleared out. No bed, no medical equipment, no machines, no airflow, nothing that should create sound. It was basically a blank room waiting for renovation approval. One night at around 2:40 a.m., Liam was doing his usual walk through the West Wing. He was half asleep, scrolling his phone, thinking more about the snack he was going to grab when he finished. As he walked past room 4, something instantly stopped him. The door, which was always shut, was open. Not wide, just barely cracked, maybe half an inch, just enough to see darkness inside. Liam froze. The West Wing was supposed to be empty, no reason for any door to be open. He slowly stepped closer, and the closer he got, the colder the air felt. Not normal AC cold, more like ice cold, that kind of cold that feels heavy on your skin. Then the breathing started again. But this time, it wasn't faint, it wasn't distant, it wasn't soft, it was loud, like someone standing right next to him. A slow, shaky inhale, followed by a long, weak exhale, like whoever or whatever was breathing was struggling to pull air in. Then it stopped. No fading out, no gradual silence, just suddenly gone. Liam swallowed hard, lifted his phone, and nudged the door open with his foot. His flashlight swept across the room. Nothing. Completely empty. Bare floor, blank walls, no vents, no machines, no airflow, nothing that could make breathing sounds. He stepped inside for maybe 2 seconds, then backed out immediately. Something in the air felt wrong, heavy. Almost like the room didn't want him there.
And just as he stepped back into the hallway, he heard footsteps behind him, fast ones, like someone sprinting straight at him. He spun around so fast he almost lost his balance. But the hallway was empty. No one there. No echo, no movement, just silence, stretching from one end of the wing to the other. He didn't even try to finish the rest of the round. He walked straight back to the front desk, sat down and stayed there until the sun came up. He didn't tell anyone at first, afraid they'd think he was imagining things, but he never walked past room 4 alone again. Months later, the facility finally cleared out old files as part of the renovation process. That's when the staff discovered something about room 4. Back in the early 2000s, before the area was remodeled, room 4 had been used for respiratory therapy. A patient had collapsed during a night session. Staff didn't reach him in time. Security footage from that night showed the man stepping in and out of the room repeatedly, leaning on the walls, clearly struggling to breathe. His final moments were spent pacing that same empty room, gasping for air. After hearing that, everything made sense to Liam. That breathing, that cold pocket of air, that door cracking open on its own. Some employees say the West Wing feels normal during the day. But if you walk past room 4 after midnight, when the hall is quiet and the air goes still, you can still hear that same shaky inhale echoing from the doorway, like someone is still inside, waiting for help that never came. If you have ever worked at a grocery store, you already know that the walk-in freezer is its own kind of liminal nightmare. It is bright, cold, isolated, and somehow feels 10 times bigger when you are the only one standing inside. The kind of place where your footsteps echo too much, and every noise makes you glance over your shoulder. But for a night shift worker named D, the freezer became something he would never forget for the rest of his life. D worked the closing shift at a supermarket that stayed open until 1 a.m. Once the final customer walked out and the automatic door slid shut, the entire building transformed. The buzzing lights suddenly felt louder. The refrigerators hummed in long, steady notes. The aisles that were crowded during the day became long, empty tunnels. D did not mind the quiet. He actually liked the peaceful part of the night shift. But there was one area he always avoided when he could: the cold storage wing, especially the older freezer in the back. The store had 2 walk-in units, one for produce and one for frozen goods. The produce walk-in was newer, clean, and honestly not a big deal. But the frozen walk-in was a different story. It was deeper, the walls were older, and the heavy metal door had a personality of its own. Sometimes it opened smoothly, and sometimes you had to yank it twice just to get the latch to release. Every employee hated doing inventory in there because the door sticking was not just annoying, it was a little scary when you were standing alone inside a giant metal box. One night, D was assigned to restock the frozen aisle before closing. He did not complain out loud, but inside he was already dreading it. He grabbed his inventory sheet, pushed the heavy freezer door open with his shoulder, and stepped inside. The cold hit him instantly. His breath fogged in front of his face like tiny white clouds, and the floor had a thin layer of frost that crackled softly under his shoes. He stacked a few boxes, trying to focus on finishing as fast as possible, when something caught his eye. At the far back of the freezer, all the way near the wall, he saw long marks on the frosted floor. Not small marks. Not like a cart or a crate had been dragged. These looked like something, or someone, had been pulled across the ground. 2 long streaks, cutting through the frost from the back wall all the way toward where he was standing. He stared at them for a few seconds, trying to come up with a normal explanation. Maybe the morning shift workers dragged heavy boxes earlier. Maybe someone moved equipment. But the longer he looked, the more that explanation fell apart. The drag marks were fresh. He could actually see frost melting around the edges of the streaks, as if whatever had made them had been warm enough to melt frost not long before he walked in. Right then, the freezer lights flickered. Not off, just a quick, sharp flicker, followed by a louder hum from the ceiling. Dee stood up fast, his heart knocking in his chest. He tried to shake it off, tell himself it was just old wiring, but the freezer felt different now. Too quiet, too still. That is when he heard it. A low exhale coming from behind the stacked boxes he had just been organizing. Dee froze in place. He did not move. He did not breathe. He just stared at the stacks, waiting for another sound. After a few seconds, it came again. Another exhale, louder this time. Slow, shaky, like someone trying to warm their lungs in the cold. Dee took a step back, and another. Each step felt heavier than the last. He did not take his eyes off the stacks because he could sense movement behind them. Not a person stepping out, not an animal scurrying, but a tall, shifting shape passing behind one stack, then the next, like it was pacing slowly along the back of the freezer. That was enough. Dee did not wait for a third sound. He bolted toward the door, grabbed the handle, and pulled hard. Nothing. The handle jammed. He yanked it again, harder this time, but it did not budge. The door refused to open. His breath quickened and fogged the air as he pulled and pulled with no result. Behind him, the breathing grew louder, not frantic, not angry, just slow, cold inhales, like someone freezing was trying to warm their chest. Each inhale seemed closer than the last. Dee slammed his palm against the door, shouting for the manager. He hit the door over and over until the metal rattled. It felt like forever before anyone heard him, but finally, after almost a full minute, he heard footsteps outside. The latch clicked, the door swung open, and the breathing stopped immediately. The manager asked what happened, but Dee was too rattled to explain at first. When they stepped back inside the freezer to check, the entire place looked normal. No warm streaks, no drag marks, no footprints, no shifting shape in the back corner. Everything had refrozen. Even the floor looked untouched. When Dee finally managed to tell the manager everything, the guy went pale. He told Dee there was an old story about the freezer. Years earlier, before the store updated its safety checks, an employee had gotten trapped inside overnight. They found drag marks on the floor from where he had tried to crawl toward the door again and again until help arrived the next morning. The freezer had been repaired, or at least that was what everyone believed. But the employees always said the same thing. The door still jammed sometimes, especially when someone stayed inside for too long. After that night, Dee avoided the frozen walk-in completely. He never stepped foot in there alone again. And honestly, no one blamed him. Our final story comes from a woman named Raina, who worked security at a 5-story corporate parking garage. Night shifts in places like that always have a strange energy. Too quiet, too open, too empty. Every tiny sound bounces around the concrete walls like it's trying to get your attention. Even stuff that shouldn't echo somehow does. Raina's routine was simple. She sat in the booth, monitored the cameras, did walkthroughs every hour, and made sure no one was hanging around in the stairwells. Easy assignment, good pay, nothing dramatic. But during her 3rd month, she started noticing something that made her dread checking the monitors, specifically camera 12. That one was pointed at level 4, the floor that always looked just a little darker than the others. Whenever she switched to camera 12, she would see a shadow standing between two cars in the far back. Not a person with clear features, not even a full figure, just a tall, still silhouette, motionless, shaped like someone standing and waiting. At first, she didn't think too much of it. Parking garages have weird lighting. Maybe it was a column or a reflection, or some leftover prop from one of the corporate events upstairs. She even wondered if one of the cars had something hanging inside, creating a shape. But then she realized something that made her go cold. The silhouette didn't stay in the same place. Some nights it was close to a pillar. Other nights it leaned near the railing. Sometimes it stood perfectly centered between the cars. Always there, always facing the camera, always still. Raina tried to ignore it. She cleaned the camera lens, she checked the lights, she even asked maintenance if anyone had installed something new on that level. Nothing. And every night, at some point, camera 12 would show that tall shape quietly existing in the corner of the screen. One night around 3 a.m., after hours of building up courage, she decided she had to check the floor in person. She couldn't keep guessing. She took the elevator to level 4, holding her flashlight tight. The moment the doors opened, she felt it, cold air brushing against her like she had stepped into a walk-in freezer. The entire level was silent, not peaceful silence, unnatural silence. No hum from nearby cars, no distant footsteps, just the faint sound of traffic far outside, barely reaching the concrete. Raina walked between the rows of cars, following the camera angle she knew by heart. She reached the exact two vehicles shown on camera 12. No shadow, no figure, nothing at all. She stood there for a few seconds, trying to convince herself she had been imagining everything. But when she turned around to head back to the elevator, she froze. On the opposite side of the garage, far across the level, she saw a shape, tall, still, positioned behind the car, facing her direction. She blinked. The figure didn't move. Her chest tightened. She raised her flashlight, slowly, trying to get a better view. The beam hit the car, the floor, the pillars, but the figure was gone. She lowered the light. The silhouette returned. Raised the light, she was gone. Lowered, there. It was only visible when not illuminated. A shape that existed in the dark, but vanished the second light touched it. Raina didn't wait for a second opinion. She turned, speed-walking back to the elevator while trying to keep her breathing quiet. Every step felt like something was watching her. The elevator took way too long to arrive. When the doors finally opened, she stepped inside and kept slamming the button to close them. Back in the safety of the booth, she immediately switched to camera 12. The silhouette was standing there again. Not across the garage, not behind a car. Exactly where she had seen it earlier on the monitor, directly in view, facing the camera, facing her. Raina reported everything. She showed timestamps, pointed out the movement patterns, explained the flashlight thing. Corporate told her it was camera noise and maybe environmental distortion. They told her to ignore it. She didn't argue. She just quietly decided she wasn't sticking around. 2 months later, she quit. The new security guard lasted 1 week. At 2 a.m., he sent an email saying he refused to continue his shift and wouldn't return unless they fixed the issue on level 4. The message didn't explain what he saw. He didn't need to. No one works that shift now. No one sits in the booth. No one walks those floors at night. The entire garage is monitored remotely. Camera 12 is still active, and the silhouette still shows up, quiet, still, and always watching. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more true night shift horror, eerie encounters, and late-night mysteries. And if you've got a creepy experience of your own, send it to the email in the description. I'd love to feature your story next.